The moment British Vogue released that list, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in that dangerous, quiet way that only real power knows how to move. There was no press conference, no explanation, no need. One list dropped and the message landed before anyone even realized it had been sent. Right there at the top, unbothered, unannounced, effortlessly placed, the Princess of Wales. Calm, centered. Like, she didn't even need to arrive because she was already there. But that wasn't the moment that made people freeze. The real pause came seconds later when Vogue unveiled its second list, 55 names shaping culture right now. Actors, designers, musicians, people who bend rooms just by entering them. Every single name had a lane, a reason, a definition, and one name people were waiting for never appeared. No ranking, no footnote, no honorable mention, just absence. And in fashion, absence is never accidental. When Vogue goes silent, it isn't forgetting. It's deciding. Because criticism fades, but being ignored, that lingers. No door slammed, no feud announced. The door is simply closed softly. And that's how influence withdraws when it no longer feels obligated to explain itself. This was never about dresses. Vogue made that clear without even saying it. They weren't judging hymns or colors or silhouettes. This wasn't a best dressed contest. This list was about something far more dangerous. Who you are when you wear the clothes. Who still carries weight without asking for it. Who shapes culture without chasing it. Who doesn't need to announce relevance because relevance already answers for them. In this world, style isn't loud. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase cameras. It moves quietly, confidently, without apology. Vogue doesn't reward noise. It rewards restraint. And once you understand that, the list stops reading like fashion coverage and starts reading like a power map. Who gets trusted? Who still belongs in the room? And who quietly no longer does? Then there was Catherine, not just included, crowned. Vogue didn't simply place her at the top. They gave her a title that doesn't trend, doesn't expire, and doesn't need refreshing. Eternal influencer. Permanent presence. She was positioned alongside names that never had to rebrand themselves to stay relevant. Icons who didn't explain their influence because the world adjusted around them automatically. Vogue praised her loyalty to British designers, her instinct for vintage, her ability to wear something once and change its fate forever. No manifesto, no reinvention tour, just consistency, quiet repetition, trust. And then came the line that made insiders raise their eyebrows. Her influence isn't peaking. It's growing, especially as she steps closer to issuing royal warrants. Translation, her presence doesn't just move fashion, it moves money. Slowly, calmly, inevitably. That's when the contrast stopped being subtle. One woman rose without asking. The other didn't even get acknowledged. And suddenly this wasn't fashion news anymore, it was a lesson in how power actually behaves. Here's the part people underestimate. Catherine's placement wasn't symbolic, it was economic. The so-called Kate effect isn't flattery, it's math. Brands sell out within hours, designers trace spikes directly back to a single appearance, billions move because she exists where she exists. Vogue understands this language fluently. They don't crown people because they're liked, they crown people because systems respond to them. She doesn't chase fashion houses. Fashion houses quietly hope for a nod. And what makes her even more valuable is what she doesn't do. No chaos, no overexposure, no endless explanations, just reliability, restraint, stability. From Vogue's perspective, that isn't just elegance, it's security. And security is everything when deciding who deserves long-term influence and who is slowly being phased out. Now, circle back to that second list. 55 names, every one of them accounted for. Amal Clooney praised for consistency. Musicians recognized for shaping sound and image. Actors celebrated for confidence and individuality. Even the men had defined lanes. Everyone fit somewhere. And still nothing. This wasn't about forgetting. Vogue doesn't forget figures of that magnitude. This was about definition. Or rather, the lack of it. In elite circles, lists like these don't measure popularity, they measure clarity. Who are you now? What do you represent today? What lasts when the noise fades? Vogue didn't explain the absence because it didn't have to. Silence is how institutions speak when the conclusion has already been reached. Whatever that name represents at this stage, Vogue no longer considers it cultural authority. And this is where the quiet rejection sharpened. Because according to insiders, the silence wasn't accidental, it followed a moment behind the scenes. An outreach. Not a pitch, but conditions. A full feature. Prime placement. Creative control. Approval over images, quotes, narrative. This wasn't collaboration, it was command. And that's where the line hardened. Vogue works with powerful women constantly, but there's one rule they rarely break. They control the story. Even global icons don't dictate editorial authority. Insiders say the request didn't shock them because it was bold. It raised eyebrows because it felt entitled. Vogue isn't a rehabilitation clinic. They don't rescue reputations. They protect their own. Faced with a figure whose image has become polarizing and who demanded control instead of trust, Vogue did what it always does in moments like this. It declined. Politely. Quietly. Firmly. And in this world, a polite no is louder than a public rejection. It's the sound of access being withdrawn. There was a time when that presence felt intriguing, untouchable, new. But mystique is fragile. Once it's gone, it doesn't come back on demand. Overexposure isn't visibility, it's erosion. The more the public hears the same explanations, the same messaging, the same carefully managed narratives, the less power they hold. Vogue thrives on distance, on unanswered questions, on letting the image breathe. Somewhere along the way, that breathing stopped. Every appearance felt strategic. Every moment felt managed. Fashion doesn't reward effort you can see, it rewards effort you never notice. Stepping away from the royal family was supposed to unlock freedom, reinvention, opportunity. Instead, it exposed something colder, how much influence was built into the institution itself. Outside the palace walls, the safety net vanished. Deals promised resets. Projects launched with noise and anticipation, then faded without staying power. Invitations slowed. Support became conditional. The uncomfortable truth is this: much of the authority once carried didn't belong to the individual alone. It flowed through proximity to the crown. Without it, every move required more energy for less return. Freedom arrived, but so did isolation. And in industries that value stability above all else, isolation is risk. This story isn't really about fashion anymore. It's about favor. Attention is loud. It spikes. It trends. Then it disappears. Favor is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It decides outcomes. Institutions don't chase attention. They guard favor. That's why Vogue's silence matters. That's why the monarchy never rushes to respond. Power that lasts doesn't argue. It waits. Catherine's influence grows because it aligns with systems that move slowly and deliberately. The struggle on the other side isn't about talent or ambition, it's about positioning. Once you step into conflict with the structures that elevated you, attention may follow, but favor does not. And without favor, doors don't slam, they simply stop opening. In the end, this was never about who dressed better. It was about two paths leading to two outcomes. One woman waited, listened, allowed institutions to speak for her. She didn't chase relevance, she became inevitable. The other pushed forward, demanded control, demanded space, demanded to be heard, and learned that power doesn't respond well to pressure. Vogue didn't choose sides loudly. It didn't need to. It crowned one and quietly passed on the other. And that decision says more than any headline ever could. Because influence doesn't vanish overnight. It shifts. It settles. It chooses where it wants to live. And right now, it's very clear where it feels most comfortable. This isn't an ending. It's a pause, a recalibration. And the real question isn't who Vogue crowned this time. It's who will understand the lesson before the next door closes just as quietly.